So that junior year, you remember much about that race and that first time you saw him?
You know, I can't remember really, putting my eyes on him in the pool in the preliminaries. We were at Michigan at the time. And, everything about Michigan is just grand. If you've ever been to a football game there, you walk in and it takes your breath away. And the pool was the same way. It was the first time I had ever swam with automatic timers on the wall. So that was new to me. Spencer, I didn't pay attention to him because I hadn't really come in contact with him physically or verbally. I just watched him in the preliminaries. And then I got in and did my thing. I don't remember what I swam, but I remember I finished in the finals behind him 54.6, and I think he went a 54.4.
You were all over him. It was just a couple of tenths.
Yeah, and that's when I knew that I can beat this guy. This is the first time I'd ever really been pressed. And I was peaking. Ron Alsterbrook had me on a certain program, and I had peaked right at the time I was supposed to. And that's why I was dropping, 2-3 seconds here. And I did the same thing the next year. He just had a way of knowing how to coach me. And it was all about the kick, because I had a tremendous kick that got me out of the water, but he adjusted it because I was coming too high out of the water. So I kind of slowed the kick down a little bit and stayed a little lower, but my legs just drove me out of the water. And that was the secret to the whole thing. You were going to kick 2 miles every day, no matter what. I practiced 5 days a week with him. We were swimming at a place called Cronk Recreation when he became our coach. Somehow or other, he left Patton, and Harry Hawk took over Patton, and he came with Northwest Aquatic Club. But he knew how to train me. He would train me different than anybody else. I do sprinting all the time, not too much distance other than the kicking. So he peaked me just right when I went to the state meet.
So in 63, like I said, I've seen you 53 mid in newspaper articles in February of 63. So you guys are already under the state record, the state meet record at that point. So that you've got a chance to do some really big things going into the state meet. Take me inside kind of your thinking your senior year. And I know that we talked on the phone that there was a little bit of a budding rivalry between you and Spencer that kind of built into that state meet. Tell me about, kind of what built into that.
Well, it starts out the year before when we felt that we were being treated as stepchildren, and we shouldn't be there. We have no right to swim with these guys out in the suburbs. And I'm just talking about in fact, I don't even know who they are. They were just rumors that would get back to the Detroit swimmers, that our times were phony, that we're swimming in short pools, and we couldn't compete with them. Well, we were actually swimming in longer pools. The pools I swam in most of the time were 33 1/3 yards long. They're swimming in 25-yard pools. They're getting 3 turns. I'm only getting 2, and I'm still outpacing this Don Spencer guy. When I got to the first state meet at Michigan, and I finished right behind him, 2 tenths behind him, I was taken back because he wouldn't even talk to me, wouldn't even look at me. And I was never brought up that way. You always, take a couple of breaths, get your heart rate down a little bit, talk to the guy that beat you, talk to the guy that you beat, and then ease your way over to the ladder. He just turned around and went the other way like, no big deal. I took care of him. Well, then it became a grudge thing for me. I was going to beat this guy, and I knew I could beat him because this was the first time I ever really went against him, and I almost got him. Maybe I didn't take it out fast enough. I don't remember, but I know that this was a big meet. This was my biggest meet I'd ever been in, other than the Olympic trials in 1960. But there was no way I was going to make the Olympic team. It was just an honor to swim with those guys and girls back then in 1960. But it became a grudge match. A couple of swimmers and myself went out to Seaholm to watch a meet. And I don't know if it was a Doug Webster meet. I think it was maybe Royal Oak Kimball against Seaholm. And somehow or other, they saw who we were, or somebody saw who we were. And a couple of weeks later, the rumors start coming back to Detroit that, oh yeah, they're scared of us. They're coming out and sneaking into the pool and watching us swim. So they're scared of us. But we weren't scared of them. You know, we just wanted to go out there and see one of those meets in the suburbs. And we picked Seaholm because it was about the closest place. And Dougie Webster was part of our team, and we traveled with him, and he was an up-and-coming young kid. And I think he was a freshman, or maybe, yeah, I think he might have been a freshman then.
He would have been a freshman in 63. He graduated in 66.
Okay, then we didn't go to see him. I know he was involved early, so it'd be 63. But we went out just to see the team, Birmingham Seaholm. But here comes the rumors again. So it was a grudge match for me and him. Every time I buried my head into the wall when I'm ready to drown, you know, doing Ryan Osterbrook once a month, and he never told us when it was, but we'd have to swim 400s. And swimming a 400, and 10 of them. And swimming a 400 for a breaststroker or a backstroker or a freestyler is no big deal. You know, that's just like working out. But a butterflyer doing 16 lengths 10 times, it's a killer, just a killer. But I remember burying my head the last 25 yards, and it was always beat Spencer, beat Spencer. So it was a war inside my head that I was going to beat this guy. And it came halfway through the season when my time started dropping that there's no problem. I'm going to beat this guy, and there's no problem. So the anticipation was there, but I wasn't worried. So I just kept working hard, and my coach peaked me again right at the right time, and the rest is history.
Before we get to that weekend in those two races, and it was two, not just one, tell me about the decision to just swim the butterfly at the state meet and not put a second event with it.
Well, it was my tunnel vision, actually, that I wanted to win that butterfly race. I had already cracked 50 in the 100 free. So I could have been 1-2 in the 100 free because I was under 50. I swam a 49.7 in a meet. And I was the leadoff on a 400 freestyle relay. And I have no idea why I was the first guy, because I was always the last guy. I was the anchor on all the 400s and 200 relays. But Ron put me in the first guy. So I let off, which gave me the stopwatch going right to the wall, and I did that 49.7. But it never crossed my mind to swim the 100 because I wanted to save everything for the fly. That was all I was interested in. I just wanted to bury him, you know, because of the way he kind of treated me, even though there was no verbal anything. It was just attitude, you know. So, and the same thing with his coach, Corey Van Fleet. Corey Van Fleet was a student teacher at Post Junior High School and was involved in my training and some of the meets we went to for a whole year. He worked with me as a student teacher, and then all of a sudden he's out at Seaholm. He never talked to me. So maybe it's me. I don't know. But I thought, you know, this ain't right. And that was the grudge part about it, that I was going to beat him. And I think Pete Adams and Ricky Scarborough and you know, the other ones that won their events, it was a "How do you like me now?" instant. Yeah. You know, we're here. When in the first meet we were knocking on the door and letting them know, hey, we're coming. And then the next year we buried them. You know, I think we took at least four first places, and we had a couple other guys. George Sildana slipped in the 400. He swam with us at Patton. And it was a family, whether you were at Patton or whether you were at Northwest Aquatic Club. You went to these meets, you worked out together. At Brennan Pool, we all worked out together. You know, you're swimming, I'm swimming next to guys from Michigan who had come in. 5 or 6 guys from Michigan State are down there. I had a guy named Jack Zableith that was from Sao Paulo, Brazil, that was swimming with my best friend, John Feeney, he was living with John Feeney's parents, and he came from Sao Paulo, Brazil to train with us in '64. So just a whole wide range of swimmers that were in that last '64 year before the Olympics. But it was a grudge race, and I'm glad it worked out for me.
I'm sure. So let's set it up here. So in prelims, you go 52.9. This is your first time under 53, and clearly shatters the state meet record by a second and a half for Spencer's 54.4 from the year before. He goes 53.9 in prelims. So he's
Right.
swimming better than he's ever swum, but there's separation here. And I know just in our conversation, you've been so hyper-focused on him in finishing off your own state championship. I'm curious, is the national record introduced into is it in your thinking at that point at all? When you go 52, the national record is 52.7 at this point from 1961. It stood for 2 years. And now you arrive at 52.9 in prelims the day before. So I'm curious, are you thinking at all about the national record in addition, or are you really focused on the lane next to you?
No, the national record I knew was held by Fred Schmidt from New Trier High School in Winnetka, Illinois. And that was one of the greatest swimming schools in the country as far as high schools. They just rolled out national champions. I knew about the record, but it never crossed my mind. It was a goal that I hadn't even thought about attaining. I never crossed my mind that I would come anywhere near it. But yeah, I did go the 52.9 in the preliminaries. And I think I knocked Spencer back on his knees there because the psych game had been on and all year long where the rumors were coming. And I'm sure that was kind of his way to psych me out. And I'd been psyched out as a kid before. They used to not show up and they'd have to call them 2 or 3 times to the starting blocks. And, the kids would just kind of lay back where I'm better than those guys. I'll take my time. Well, all of a sudden the meet directors and that said, there's no more. We're going to call you one time. And if you don't come to the staging area and get your lane and be ready to go, you're disqualified. So the psych part kind of went out of swimming. But yet you're still looking at these guys and you're going, boy, these guys are tough. This is different. I'm in it now. So, but yeah, that first preliminary was in the afternoon. I think it was a Saturday in the afternoon. I remember going to dinner. It was like 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We got out of there and we didn't have to be back till 8 o'clock at night at Michigan State. And I remember going to dinner with my mom and dad and my coach, Ron Alsterbrook. And I remember looking at the menu and I asked my coach what I should eat. And I know my mother's eyes went up, why wouldn't you be asking your mother what to eat, But Ron told me, he said, you eat whatever you want. Don't worry about it. And I said, well, I feel like a little bit of steak and maybe a little bit of pasta and meatballs. And he goes, do it. So we split. He got the pasta with meatballs and I got a steak and we cut it in half and we split it. And I had, almost 4 hours to digest. And I got in the pool. When I got back to Michigan State, I was the first guy in the warm-up or in the pool warming up. And I was the last guy out. My coach from high school was there, Harold Lindsay. And I remember him coming over to me and saying, don't you think you ought to get out? And I was doing 25s, the same thing I'd always done, up on the starting block. And I was on the lane number 1. So there was a ladder there. And I would dive in and do a 25. And then I'd get out, walk back, do a 25. And I probably did about 50 of them. And he asked me, don't you think you should get out? Well, I'm looking at Ron Alsterbrook up in the bleachers and he's got a stopwatch and he's telling me whether it's 25.2, 24.9, 25.3. So I knew that I was up there. And I was just full of confidence. And when I went to the 52.9, I knew that everything I'd been doing all year long and all the thought in my head was coming to fruition. I was going to beat this guy and there was no problem. And that was kind of why I didn't swim the 100. I wanted everything to go in this one event. So that's how that worked out.
So obviously you go into the final relaxed, you've got all that confidence that you're going to win the race, but you still have to do it. You still got to execute, and you find a way to go 3 more tenths faster, break that national record by 1/10 of a second to go 52.6. And, I want to give people, perspective for this time. They may hear 52.6 and think, oh, I know guys that go 52.6 today. Not only was this a national record, this was a state record that stood for 8 years. Tom Zuba came along as a junior in 1971 and finally broke this state record. But in the state's history of 100 butterfly records, it's one of not just one of the most kind of exciting swims when you think about what it was at that time, but it had staying power. And it stood as that state record for into the 70s, which is really a statement. So take us into that final. And in you finishing it, I'm curious, how quickly did you find out that it was, did it really sink in that this was the national record? What was your thought process during and after the race?
Okay, we're up on the blocks, and I don't remember the gun going off, but I remember the announcer, and he had the same voice, and these announcers have to announce the same way, so there's no anticipation of having a false start. But I remember the last thing I remember was, take your mark. Bang, the gun goes off. I'm in the water, do a couple of dolphin kicks. I come up with my first stroke, and we're right together. So my whole plan was to just stay with them, and then pour it on in the end. And that's exactly what I did. Going into the 75, the last turn, and I was about a half a body length ahead of them. And I knew it was over because I was still fresh. I came out, and Michigan State has these very large lane markers, and the pool was completely smooth coming back. And I'm out in front, and I just poured it on, and I think I beat him almost 2.5 body lengths. You mentioned there was a picture that he hadn't even crossed the flags yet. So that's 10 yards, right, for the backstrokers, the flags that go across the pool to let them know where the wall is coming.
I mean, I've seen a picture that was published in one of the Detroit papers, and you're coming under the flags, and you can't see any other swimmer in the pool. But I don't know if it's the prelim or the final that I'm looking at, but I mean, it's a picture of dominance. Whatever race it was, you're the only picture I can see. If I post this, I'll post the picture with it so people can see it.
Okay. I knew I was way ahead of them because there was no turning back. I was still fresh. I probably could have gone faster if I'd have taken out a little bit faster. But as far as the national record, I had no idea. I was at the end of the pool. I'm looking up, and there's like 7 judges right around the starting block. And they had timers in the pool also. And they're talking, and for a split second, I thought maybe I was going to be disqualified or something. I couldn't figure out what was going on. And then I got out of the pool, and somebody told me, he said, "You broke the national record." And I was like, you could have knocked me over with a feather, Alsterbrook had come down on the pool by then, and he had known a lot of people there, so he got to come on the deck. And I remember him coming up to me and saying, "Just remember this. They can never take this away from you. Never forget that. You did it." And I didn't even know I was doing it. I was just trying to bury this guy that had kind of upset me for a year. And that's the way it is.